The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
I just missed it. It's my fault. It's on me. You don't hear that from leadership very often these days, but you heard it from Dan Quinn yesterday about what most of us were thinking when Jayden Daniels went down midway through the fourth quarter on Sunday night. Like, what is he still doing in the game, and who's responsible for keeping him out there in a game that had long been decided? Commanders are down by 31 points. I know they're knocking on the door for a score, but come on, it's just not going to happen. So Dan Quinn put it on himself yesterday, but he's got far bigger worries right now than Jayden Daniels being out, though that's a big one. And even if Daniels were healthy, I just don't know if he's got a team around him that could be anywhere near competitive. We've heard the comparisons to Robert Griffin III, and I keep pointing out, this is not the same thing. That Griffin's career really wasn't ended because of that knee injury that he suffered. His career ended because he didn't do what Jayden Daniels does. He didn't go and look at tape at 5 o'clock in the morning. He was always interested in showing you what great shape he was in. Okay, he was in great shape. But the quarterback is a cerebral position. You have to know what's going on out there. And Griffin didn't. He got away with great athleticism and smarts. He's a smart guy. There's no question about that. But he got away with that in college, and in the pros, it just doesn't work that way. And so I don't think we can say, oh, my God, here we go again. We saw this in 2012. RG3 couldn't stay healthy. That ultimately ended his career. And now we're seeing an injury-prone quarterback who's already had 3 different injuries this year, and the season's only half over. He's out indefinitely. Maybe he's not going to play again this year. I don't think it's the same thing. I believe that Jayden Daniels is going to have a long career here in Washington. He's just got to learn how to protect himself, and he's also got to look at situations, and so does the rest of the organization. I'll get to what Tom Libero wrote about the responsibility for letting the coach know that, hey, you may not be recognizing this, but we're in a game that's been decided, and we got a quarterback who you may say play it safe, but that's not the way he rolls. You got to get him out of there. So we'll get to all of that. What's really fun, and I guess it's all the fun you can have now as a Commanders fan, is watching the Cowboys fall on their face. Yes, the Cowboys beat the crap out of Washington earlier this year. That's all part of a losing streak, which has their point differential at minus 68 over the last 4 games, the 4 losses, the last 3 by 21 or more. Minus 68. That is last in the NFL. That is DFL. Minus 68 on point differential over a month period of time. And as they move forward, they'll have to move forward without their best offensive player in Jayden Daniels. So good luck with everything. They are already now 8.5-point underdogs against the Lions, who are coming here on Sunday, and we'll see where it goes from there. But the Cowboys, in what was a game that they really needed to win. They're not out of it yet at 3-5, but a win last night over Arizona would have made a huge difference. And they not only lost, but they lost to a backup quarterback who made them look silly. Jacoby Brissett, who was actually here a few years ago, didn't get to make a start, but has been just about everywhere in the NFL. I believe it's 6 teams over 10 years. And he led Arizona to a 27-17 win. He was terrific. 261 yards. That's the 3rd straight time he's thrown for more than 260 yards. He threw 2 touchdowns, 21 of 31 passing against the Cowboys. And he has been a better quarterback for Arizona than Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray was hurt, and according to the coach, they're gonna stick with Kyler Murray if he's healthy. Jacoby Brissett has been better for this team in the 3 starts, averaging 256 yards passing, 7.7 per attempt. He's thrown for 6 touchdowns and 1 interception. Kyler Murray averaging almost 100 yards less per game passing, and has thrown for 6 touchdowns with 3 interceptions. Each quarterback has run for a touchdown. Yes, Kyler Murray is faster, but Jacoby Brissett gets the job done. And I wonder how this is playing in the locker room with, the coach of the team, Jonathan Gannon, saying, I know he looked great last night, and I know we won, but Kyler Murray is our starting quarterback. Maybe that's part of the investment that they made in the team, but they're not out of it now at 3-5, and their losses, their losses coming into this game, they were all close, very close losses, as Scott Van Pelt pointed out last night when he talked about the 27-17 win with Troy Aikman and Joe Buck.
Joe, in the history of the league, it's only been a handful of times we'd seen anybody lose 5 by 4 or fewer. They did not let that bleed into this game tonight at all. What most impressed you about the way Arizona won this football game?
I think that very point, and I think Jonathan Gannon has done a really good job of keeping this team focused on what the job was this week. They've got good veteran leadership, and Calais Campbell got a couple of sacks late in the ballgame. He's part of that. And certainly is Jacoby Brissett. He's on his 6th team in 10 years total in the league. He's seen a lot. He's been in a lot of different systems, 8 head coaches, 8 different offensive coordinators, and yet he has really put this offense on his back, and they've looked better the last 3 games. And they outplayed the Dallas Cowboys basically in every phase except for that special teams mistake that they made with a block punt.
Totally agree, and you guys closed the broadcast with a point about this guy. And Troy, a capable backup in this league is incredibly important, but a capable starter is even more important. You feel like he ought to be the starter moving forward?
Well, I do. I think you've got to, put aside salaries and what someone's being paid and look at performance or how the team has played up to this point. And I think, as we discussed, Jacoby Brissett has given a little life to this offense. They look better the last 2 games coming into tonight. Obviously, those were losses. Had they come in tonight, even if Brissett had played well, they'd probably go back to Kyler Murray. My guess is they're going to stick with Jacoby Brissett. He's been good, and tonight he was phenomenal. I thought at times when he had pressure on him, he was still delivering the football accurately. There was a lot of good things, but Jacoby Brissett probably at the top of that list.
Yeah, and I thought Joe made a great point as well about just the locker room, right? You're going to want to head in a positive direction, and Brissett helped push him there. And Troy, on Countdown, when you joined us, we talked about the yin and the yang of the Cowboys. There's plenty they have shown us that makes you compelled to say this could be a really good team. And then there's also the downside. And we saw it perhaps tonight on the defensive side of the football as well, where you just go, I don't know if it's a good football team moving forward. Where does tonight leave you as it relates to the Cowboys?
Well, it's not a good football team. I mean, Bill Parcells once said you are what your record says you are, and their record says they're not a very good football team and average at best. And, Brian Schottenheimer even alluded to that this week. But this is a big blow to this franchise and this team because – they really felt coming into tonight, playing Arizona at home, they've played well at home, that they would win this game. They've got the bye coming up. Then they travel to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders, that they could kind of dig out of the hole that they had dug themselves. And I don't know what the trade announcement's going to be tomorrow, that Jerry Jones has announced that they've made one. But it's hard to imagine that guy, whoever it might be, is going to make a difference for this team. They're much further away than that. But that was all kind of predicated on being able to win this game and feel good about things as they go into the bye. But right now, there's not a lot to feel good about.
Well, 9 hours later, this is the deal that apparently Jerry has just about finalized. 4 o'clock today is the trade deadline. He has picked up linebacker Logan Wilson from the Cincinnati Bengals, whose defense, by the way, stinks. And while the Cowboys are 31st in total defense in the NFL, the Bengals are 32nd. And this is an overpaid linebacker. He's got a 4-year deal, signed an extension. So with 2 years left on that 4-year, $36 million deal, he has seen reduced playing time. So he's not even playing for a defense that stinks. And Jerry made a deal for him, sending a 7th-round pick to Cincinnati. Now, the Cowboys have given up more than 136 yards rushing in 5 straight games. 5 opponents have scored their season high in points against the Cowboys. So, hello, Mr. Wilson. Logan Wilson coming to the Dallas Cowboys. That's the big deal that Jerry is going to announce today when these trades, I guess, become official after 4 o'clock. After the loss last night, Jerry almost always talks to the media, especially at home. And did did kind of hedge on this trade. He didn't say, yeah, we're going full steam ahead, even though we lost. But judge for yourself how enthused he is about making this deal.
Thought we would play better than this. We just came out and they had a good game plan. Cardinals did. Very disappointing. About all I can say about it.
Jerry Quinn said that maybe you should consider not making a trade now based on what you saw tonight. Does this change your opinion at all?
Again, I hear opinions, and you can rest assured that, at least through my mind, that all those considerations are there. It was there before this game. It was there when we started the season about whether you make a trade or not. But what's got this on point is tomorrow's our trade deadline. We've either got to or get off the pot by tomorrow afternoon.
Well, the deal apparently is done. Logan Wilson coming to the Cowboys from Cincinnati for a 7th-round pick. The second worst defense in the league gets a linebacker who's seen decreased playing time on the worst defense in the league. Judge for yourself. You heard what Troy Aikman said about the Jacoby Brissett situation, that he should be the starting quarterback for Arizona, not Kyler Murray. Jonathan Gannon, the coach, said they're going to stick with what they've got here. He says, that's just how I feel. Pressed on it, he wouldn't add anything. So it doesn't sound like he's really all in on this, but that's what he's going to do. Maybe he should listen to the conversation that Scott Van Pelt had with Trey McBride, tight end for the Cardinals, who had a terrific game last night, caught 5 passes, including a touchdown, and he did it with Jacoby Brissett, and he did it with a team that's been on a slide, and it's just an example of how every time you take the field as an NFL player, no matter what your record is, it's just like Herman Edwards said 20 years ago, you play to win the game. You play to win the game. And they did. They went out and did that. And SVP talked to McBride about the resilience of the Cardinals.
Give folks an idea of what's required of the group to just keep the faith, particularly in a division. Right. I mean, Seattle, Los Angeles, San Francisco, they're all so good, and you all are a play or two away from being the team who's leading the division.
No doubt.
What is just how does a group lock arms and continue
I think we
forward?
just know who we are inside. We know what kind of team we can be, and like I said, we haven't been getting killed by teams. We're just losing by 1 point here.
But isn't that almost worse in a way? Yeah. Like, isn't that harder?
It is hard, but I think the main thing is we just dug deep and really played for each other, went out there and just left it all out on the field. We knew everyone was going to be watching tonight on Monday night, and we just had to leave it all out on the field and go win.
All right, about that. When we do countdown, we start 6 Eastern, 5 local. You're talking to Ryan Clark, and I got a chance to say hello in person, introduce myself, and you said, I just want to play well enough that I'm up here with me on SportsCenter. I'm like, well, look, go ball out, and you can take care of that. Yeah. You get another touchdown. You do what you have done all year long. What is your mentality of what you can do on this gigantic stage tonight to get you guys in the win column?
Yeah, I feel like, when I'm out there, I feel like I can make plays all over the field. And, we missed a couple early, but Jacoby kept coming back to me, and that touchdown in the end zone was a huge play for us. And the seam at the end, I mean, Jacoby's playing so well. He's giving me the ball when I need it, and I'm just so proud of our offense. We played very well tonight.
We were laughing because a game earlier this year against Green Bay, you had 2 touchdowns. What'd you tell me? You said I should have had 3. And I was laughing because you were so angry in that game on the bench. You looked like you were just furious at the universe, but you channeled that rage in such a positive way that night. There are a ton of young tight ends that are really playing at a high level. Yeah. What has happened for you over the course of these last couple of years that you have become a true weapon in your offense?
I think just continue to stay down, just make plays, and, when the ball comes, you make plays. And like you said, you're not going to make them all, and you got to just focus on the next one. You can't let that one play behind you, affect the rest of the game. So keep going, make the next play, and like you said in that Green Bay game, come back and score a couple more times. But there's so many great tight ends out there right now, and I'm just, happy to be a part of it.
Right on. Next play is a great mentality, I think, for life for all of us, whatever it is you're doing, because what's happened, and the next play is the only thing any of us can control. You mentioned Jacoby Brissett. And this isn't a loaded question meant to get anyone in trouble. This isn't about who didn't play tonight. It's just about Jacoby Brissett.
Yep.
In the games where he has been your starting quarterback, what has been the best thing he has done to give your offense and your team a chance to win games?
Jacoby's a real pro. He's a guy who does everything the right way. He, does everything during the week, watches all the film, does everything the right way. And I think one thing that Jacoby does is he keeps us calm. He keeps us poised in the huddle, and he really gives us confidence. He's going to talk to everybody. He's going to tell us how he's feeling, what he wants us to do, and he's going to trust his guys. He's going to give us chances. He's going to, throw us the ball when we're covered, and he's going to give us chances. And I'm just so proud of the way he played. He's an unbelievable quarterback, unbelievable guy, and I'm super proud of him.
We showed some of his sort of the travels, right, from where he's been since in these last few years. It's been a different team every year because he is exactly what you described, a professional who is able to fill in when called upon and give his team a chance to win. And you see the smile on his face, and he afterwards just talked about just trying to do his job and be present week to week. I think it's such a tricky job to be that guy, right? Because I'm sure he wants to play, and then when he gets the chance to play, to be able to play at the level, I just have such appreciation for that, and it sounds like you really do as well.
I do too, man. He comes in, he works so hard, and I think the main thing about him is he's prepared. Whether he's going to back up the starter, he prepares the same way, and I feel so confident going into a game with Jacoby. He does everything the right way. He knows how to deliver the balls to the guys, and most importantly, he's just a great person, and I love playing for him.
Well, that is the tight end for the Cardinals, giving what sounds like a ringing endorsement to Jacoby Brissett, though the coach of the Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon, says he's going to stick with Kyler Murray. So we'll see where that goes, but you may have a divided locker room in Arizona because they've been playing really well with Brissett, and I would have been interested to see Brissett play here a few years ago. Not that it would have mattered in Ron Rivera's last year, but he has, wherever he's been that guy. Mariota has done that here, and looks like he may have to go the rest of the way. Yeah, that's quite possible that we've seen the last of Jayden Daniels this year. A lot of things are in play with injuries. We will go through what Dan Quinn discussed yesterday, and also with the trade deadline at 4 o'clock this afternoon, you would think a team that's gone downhill fast at 3-6 with 4 straight losses might be sellers. The problem they have is they don't have any healthy bodies to sell. We'll go through that scenario as well as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Before we get to the mea culpa and the long injury rundown from Dan Quinn, this broke last night after Quinn had addressed all the injuries. And, I don't know, it's insult to injury. It just leaves the Commanders just even more depleted. There's going to be an appeal of this. The problem with appeals in the NFL is you appeal directly to the group that gave out the punishment. So Frankie Louvu has, I guess, set a record here that he has become the first player to be suspended for repeated violations of the hip drop tackle rule. And he's been fined for this, fined $23,000 in Week 4 and another $46,000 after the game on Sunday night against Seattle. It was in the first quarter, and he was trying to tackle because they didn't tackle him very often. He had a field day, especially in that first half, Jackson Smith-Njigba. But in making that tackle, that was considered to be a violation of the hip drop rule. Too many times, third time. So now he's facing a 1-game suspension, which, in addition to the fine money, is going to cost him over $500,000 in salary. I didn't realize Louvu was making that kind of cash. But anyway, that's what he'd have to give up if he can't play against the Lions on Sunday. There is going to be an appeal, but these appeals are almost never won. So that leaves them even more depleted. And this was the rundown yesterday from Dan Quinn on the body count from the loss against Seattle on Sunday.
Jayden dislocated his left elbow. No timetable on that right now. Still gathering the information. Marshawn had an MRI today and confirmed an ACL injury for him. So that will knock him out for the season. And Luke fractured his collarbone. Still working through the timetable for that, but that'll definitely knock him out for a while. So tough night on the injury front. All 3 of these guys are absolutely elite competitors, and they mean a ton to our team for their play style and what they represent.
The recap, Jayden indefinitely with a dislocated elbow. Luke McCaffrey, fractured collarbone. It seems to me that's got to be a 6-week injury. And with 8 games left to go, okay, Maybe you have to bring him back because they just don't have bodies at this point. And that closes the book on Marshawn Lattimore almost exactly a year after they made the trade for him in giving up draft picks and paying him a lot of money, which turned out to be a disaster. Adam Peters swung big and missed big on that. So those three guys, at least one of them is out for the year. One of them is likely out for the year at McCaffrey, and we'll have to see about Jayden. And I will say this for Quinn. He's been a stand-up guy, and with all the criticism he was facing after the loss on Sunday night about leaving Jayden Daniels in there in a game that was well out of hand, the Commanders down 31 points midway through the fourth quarter, and to see his star quarterback, the franchise, go out with a dislocated elbow, this is how he opened up the news conference yesterday.
I know many of you have been asking about the thought process of Jayden being in the game in that situation. I get that. I've been thinking about it, honestly, nonstop, too. And, for me, the answer is, man, I missed it. But I would, I'll fill you in on my thought process. At the start of the fourth quarter, I guess it was probably like 12 and a half minutes left in the game. And that was going to be the last drive for a couple of guys, Jayden and Zach and Debo and LT. And so we're going to have any read run plays and meaning no carries, for the quarterback on a run. And honestly, man, that's where I missed it. Of course, he could scramble. It's Jayden. It's what he's special at, and that is 100%. That's on me.
Yeah, that's one of those where you should understand intuitively that if you tell him, "Oh yeah, just hand off," that he's not going to do that. His instinct is if there's something there, he's going to take it. He ran 10 times in that game. 10 times. Because a lot of the time his receivers weren't covered. He couldn't find anybody, and he was under enormous pressure throughout the game, as you would expect with Seattle able to do that. And then they had no running game. Looks like old Bill was a great early season story, but Bill is not producing anywhere near the way he was in the first few games of the season. So they've been put in a very difficult situation, and he was trying to make something happen, which is his nature, and Quinn should have recognized that. Now, Tom Lovero's got a column today lighting up Quinn for what he did, recognizing that he admitted his mistake yesterday, but that's part of the job. And I'll get to what Tom wrote, but this is what Quinn said about the decision that he made after the game to get in front of reporters yesterday and say, it's on me, I screwed up.
Yeah, the hindsight part is the hardest one. That's what I think about all night and nonstop. When you have chances and you look back to say, man, how do you do this differently, so this doesn't happen? And, 12 and a half, minutes, I thought, okay, this is the, last drive for them and what we'll do. And so just missed it, John, honestly. There's no other reason behind that, and just mad, upset, all those things. And then as far as timetables for Jayden, they're still gathering the last little bit of information and should have maybe a further update as the week continues with him.
I'm sure he's going to be out for this game, and I wouldn't be surprised if they put him on injured reserve, which would mean 4 games out. And then after that, you'd be in December, and you'd have to make a decision as to whether to play him the last month of the season. This is what Lovero writes today in his column. He says, speaking of hindsight, it seems like there was little or no discussion Sunday among the coaches about whether to sit Daniels, who was sacked 4 times. The injury occurred on the 4th, and was pressured on 17 of his 34 dropbacks, the highest rate of his short career. How does that happen? Do you know how many people are on the Washington coaching staff? The team's website lists 29 staffers. They have an offensive coordinator. They have an assistant head coach. They have an offensive pass game coordinator. They have a quarterback's coach. They have an assistant quarterback's coach. They have an offensive quality control coach. They have an offensive assistant, 2 quarterback coaches, 2 of them, he says. And not one of them tapped Quinn on the shoulder, I'm paraphrasing here, to say, hey, maybe we ought to get him out of the game. Where were these people? Where were they to do their job? Maybe that's not part of the way Quinn likes to roll. He doesn't like to be interrupted in what he does. But, yeah, I mean, if you have all these assistant coaches, like in college basketball, used to be that a team had a head coach and maybe 1 assistant. Well, now there are like 6 assistants on the bench, and one of them may just have the responsibility of telling the coach how many timeouts he's got left. That may be his only job. And they will say something to the coach. Now, whether he blows them off or not, that's up to the coach. But there should have been somebody to say, hey, Dan, look, you told him that you got to play it safe, that you don't take off and run. Well, as Quinn said, kind of beating himself up. Of course, that's what he's going to do. That's his nature. That's what got him to be Jayden Daniels. Why is he going to do that? I'll throw in one other thing about the mea culpa here from Quinn. I have been fortunate in my career to have covered 3 Hall of Fame coaches. Joe Gibbs, of course, Bill Parcells when I was working at the Fan in New York, and back in my days in Dallas, Tom Landry. All very different personalities. Maybe Landry and Gibbs were kind of similar. Parcells completely different. And I remember a game where Lawrence Taylor was in a blowout. I think the Giants were up big. They usually were, because the teams I covered were Super Bowl worthy. They went to the Super Bowl after the 1990 season, and they won it. They beat the Buffalo Bills in the wide right game. But Lawrence Taylor injured his ankle late in a blowout game. And the question was, well, what's Lawrence Taylor still doing in there in a blowout? And Parcells went nuts on the reporter that asked. Wasn't me, fortunately. But, that's our decision. That's what we do. Yeah, you guys write and we coach. Quinn didn't do that. Quinn said, yep, it's on me. I screwed up. I shouldn't have done it, and learned from that. There's a lot of questions about the defense. The defense, as you know, has been terrible. I think it's a 3-way race to the bottom between the Cowboys, the Bengals, and the Commanders. Their point differential in the last 4 games, going back to the loss to the Bears on Monday night, minus 68, which is last in the league. They're near the bottom in most of the defensive categories. And, a game like they had on Sunday night is the kind of game where sometimes a coach gets fired. Not the head coach, but sometimes they'll throw an assistant overboard. And we had that 3 years ago. It was the Thanksgiving game in Dallas where Ron Rivera, who at that point knew he was going to be fired, but threw Jack Del Rio overboard. It was so bad in Dallas on Thanksgiving Day. The next day, still Thanksgiving weekend, where people are eating leftover turkey sandwiches, that was it for Jack Del Rio. Joe Witt has been under fire here, and his defense was okay last year. They got some really good performances from veteran people, including Frankie Louvu, who it looks like he's going to have to do without on Sunday against Detroit. So, the question has been, how much longer are you going to stick with him? Is it possible that Quinn, who's been a defensive coordinator, would go back to calling the defensive signals? This is what I think is a cosmetic move, but Quinn is going to move Joe Witt from the press box down to the sidelines.
Joe will move down from the press box onto the field this week. And we're going to dig in hard on changes we can make, to make an impact and make a difference. And that's one that we will do.
What are the possible advantages? How does that help?
The advantages, Joe's, obviously an excellent communicator and teacher. And so when a play comes in and you need to go get it corrected right away, you can, get right to it. And when the advantage of seeing the game from the highest point, JP, especially on the defensive side, he gives you, a specific vision of a route and things to go, and you can be ahead of it. That's the advantage of it. And so for him being down on the field, we just felt like it's a change that needs to be made and, get into that space. And, it may not be forever, but that's what we need at the moment.
Yeah, he really doesn't have a great explanation for this, because he's telling you that he has a better view of things in the press box. And you might have noticed that when Quinn was in Dallas, that's where he called the defensive signals. When he was the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, he was up in the box. So, I think this is change just for the sake of change. And maybe the next step is out the door. Who knows? You have a few more defensive performances like they've had in this 4-game losing streak, especially the last 3. Maybe that's going to be it for Joe Witt. Maybe it's one step at a time, down from the press box to the field, and maybe out the door. I like the guy. I love his sound bites, but the fact of the matter is this defense last year and a half has not been all that great. Now, we knew this too. To be fair to Joe Witt, we knew that once the new regime came in and looked at this roster, that was going to be the weak point of the team. You had a defensive guy for 4 years, and his drafts were abysmal, and he left them with just a bare cupboard, especially on defense. You bring Jayden Daniels in, your whole offense changes. So that you would excuse, but the fact of the matter is that they're going downhill fast, particularly defensively. And if you don't make some changes, then, you're just going to go circle the drain for what's left of the season and then try and pick up the pieces again. And it would almost feel like, except for the fact that you will still have Jayden Daniels under contract, it will feel very much going into the 2026 season like it did going into 2024. Like when Quinn was hired and he was asked about rebuilding, and he said, "Oh, I don't like that word. I call it recalibrating." And everybody kind of chuckled, like, "Yeah, well, you've seen this roster. It's going to be a rebuild." And what do you know? They got to the NFC Championship game. This year, reality hits, and now maybe it's buckle up, grab a Snickers, and it's going to be a few more years on this. As far as the decision on Jayden, he's going to want to play. It's his left elbow. It's not his right elbow, not his throwing elbow. But he has had 3 injuries this year. And he is the franchise. He's the future of the team. And if he comes back, he's going to be coming back to a team that's just not very good right now. The injuries have taken control of that. I'll get to all the injuries here, the list in a moment. But it's double-edged. He's been hurt a lot this year. And aside from the offensive line, which has stayed pretty healthy, the other problem is you got no running game right now. Bill's not the answer. You have no wide receivers. Luke McCaffrey was your next best option, and he's likely to be gone for the year. You could get Terry McLaurin back, but I would guess that you don't get him back until after the bye, which would mean the Monday night game against Denver on the 30th. So you're really in a tough spot here. And what are you bringing him back to? You're not bringing him back to a team that's going to make a run at the playoffs. So Herman Edwards, who was his first college coach at Arizona State, he was on yesterday with Dan Patrick, and it's Edwards' belief that they should sit Jayden for the rest of the year.
I think there comes a point to where, first of all, we know the players are competitive, and they don't ever want to come out. Sometimes you got to protect them from themselves. And I think there's a point in that third quarter where you're looking at it, and you're going, okay, how many possessions do I have left? I got 4 possessions left, probably in this game. Coach, we got to have to pull the quarterback, right? And you got to make that decision, and it's hard, and sometimes you get caught up in the game, and you're so competitive. You want your good guys in the game, but there comes a point to where I got to get him out, right? Because he's already been injured twice.
I know. That's the point. When I'm watching, I'm going, take him out. Take him out. Yeah. I know he just got back. I don't want to give him more reps. I want to protect him long haul, and now his season's over.
Yeah, because you're not bringing him back. I don't care what they say. He's done for the year. I mean, if I'm in that organization, I'm going, hey, we got to now. 3 times in 1 year is a lot. So let's just rest him now.
Well, that's Herman Edwards' view. We'll see what the view is of the organization. I don't think it's a bad idea. The only thing I would say about it is Jayden is still developing, and they don't play in the preseason anymore. So, once he comes back next year, he will have limited on-field reps once the season begins. So would you bring him back for the last, could be 5 games, could be 4, let him play? I don't know. That's going to be a tough call on their part. And on top of everything else, do you want a 4th injury? No, you don't. So, and if it's an injury that's going to need surgery, he's been able to avoid that so far, and we don't know if surgery is going to be needed yet on the elbow. Quinn is supposed to update that tomorrow. But, if he's going to have another injury that's going to require surgery, and that's going to screw up the offseason as well, maybe Edwards is right. You just sit him out the rest of the year. You bite the bullet. You tell the fan base, yeah, I know last year was Camelot, but this year was Skid Row, and we got to get back on track. The best way for us to get back on track is in 2026 is to have a healthy Jayden Daniels. We'll work on the rest of the roster. We'll do what we can in the draft. We got some money in free agency. Let's see what happens going into 2026. But that is really where this team is at right now. And I think Edwards makes a great point. I think Herm is on point there. Maybe the best thing to do is to sit him out. Now, the projections on injuries, here's some numbers that Tom Shad had in the Post today. Last year, they missed a total of 92 man games, like 92 missed games by the entire roster for injury. This year, through just half the season, the projection is 117, and that's assuming, and you can't really assume this because injuries are a part of football. If you assume somehow that they don't have any injuries for the rest of the year, it'll be 117. So already halfway through, with no more injuries, they would have 25 more missed games by your roster than they had all of last year. And it's not just the number of games missed by players, it's the players who are missing them. Jayden Daniels will almost certainly miss his fourth game coming up this week. Terry McLaurin, Dan Quinn said, is unlikely to play this week against Detroit. So that's 6 games for him. Noah Brown has missed 7. He's on injured reserve. I think he has to miss 2 more. Debo's missed 1. I wouldn't be shocked if they trade Debo today. I think that's in play. Luke McCaffrey looks like he's out for the rest of the year. Austin Eckler is out for the rest of the year. He's already missed 7 because he got hurt in the second game. John Bates has missed 2 games because of injury. Colson Yankoff, special teams player, has missed 2. Sam Cosmi missed the first 6 coming off the knee injury from last year. And then 3 edge rushers. They don't have anybody to put pressure on the quarterback. Dietrich Wise, Dorrance Armstrong, and Javonte Jean-Baptiste all out for the rest of the year with injuries. Lattimore out for the rest of the year. I don't know if that's a positive or a negative on the field, but that has turned out to be a complete disaster for the team. So he's gone for the year and probably has played his last game here. Will Harris has a broken leg. He's already missed 6. I can't imagine he's back until after the bye and maybe not at all this year. And then even the kicker missed a game this year. So it has just been, to use an old cliche, the MASH unit here. And on top of that, you've got Frankie Louvu, who's likely going to miss the Detroit game on a suspension for violating the hip drop tackle rule too many times. As shockingly to me, he got his hands on wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba on Sunday night and brought him down illegally, it appears. So absolute mess with injuries, and sometimes years happen like this. I've talked about 93 when Richie Pettibone came in off a team that had been a consistent playoff team, Super Bowl winner 2 years before. Richie said business as usual, and the injuries got bigger and bigger and bigger and more numerous, and a team that was supposed to be in the mix wound up 4-12. Richie got fired, and that was the end of that. People are already talking about firing Dan Quinn. That's ridiculous. That's not going to happen. But it's amazing how things can disintegrate as quickly as they do. And halfway through a season that had hopes of, possibly taking the next step, knocking on the door last year, and maybe, as Bump Phillips said, kick the damn door down this year. The door got slammed in their face, and they're facing a losing season with a 3-6 record and 8.5-point underdogs at home this week. Not good. Coming up, more on all the injuries with the Commanders, and also we will look back on what has been a very interesting development in sports, and I'll keep that a secret. Stay with us. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. Well, if you can't win, you can hope the Cowboys lose. I mean, isn't that what being a Washington football fan is all about? And the trade that Jerry Jones had been crowing about yesterday looks like it's going to happen. It's not going to blow your socks off. And also, Herman Edwards has come up with a very interesting trend in the NFL, which you may not have thought about. Remember the SI jinx? Like if a player was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, his team would have a crushing defeat, or if the team was on the cover, same thing. Also the Madden curse. The player was on the cover of Madden would sometimes suffer an injury. Well, it could be the throwback curse, which is going on in the NFL. I'll get to that in a second. Cowboys apparently have made the trade that Jerry Jones said was all but done going into last night's loss. They lost 27-17 at home to Arizona. Stunning. Dallas now 3-5-1. Schedule doesn't look great. They will play the Raiders next. That'll be the 17th following their bye. They got a bye week coming up now. And then their next 5 will be the Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Lions, the Vikings, the Chargers. They're combined 26-16. Doesn't look good, but to beef up his defense, He has reportedly traded for Logan Wilson, who is a linebacker for the Cincinnati Bengals, who, by the way, have the worst defense in the NFL. Cowboys have the second worst, and Washington is gaining on their tails as they have the worst point differential over the last 4 weeks at -68, 3 straight games where they've been blown out by 21 points or more. Now, Wilson is 29 years old. He's got 2 years left on a big contract, signed a 4-year, $36 million extension in July of 2023, and has seen decreased playing time. I don't know how much he's going to help the Cowboys, but they have given up a lot of yards on the ground, more than 136 in 5 straight games, and 5 opponents have scored their season high in points against the Cowboys. So Logan Wilson on his way to rescue the Cowboys. Herm Edwards yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show, the former coach. He coached the Kansas City Chiefs, and he coached the New York Jets, and he coached at Arizona State, and I would say as a coach makes a really good broadcaster. He's a great soundbite, not a great head coach. Famous for one incredible play in the NFL, maybe one of the most incredible, the miracle at the Meadowlands when the Giants needed to take a knee. They handed off to Larry Zonka, and the exchange was fumbled between Zonka and quarterback Joe Pisarcik. Edwards picked it up, and the Eagles stole victory at the Meadowlands in a game that they were certainly going to lose. But Edwards noticed something about all these throwback uniforms that we're seeing. We saw a bunch of them this week, and I actually kind of like what the Packers did. I mean, I know it's kind of silly with a helmet to paint it to look like a leather helmet, especially with these soft caps that they put on top of it to prevent concussions, and they had to make that look like a leather helmet. But whatever. This is a trend that Herman Edwards noticed.
This year, for some reason, they're bringing back these old uniforms. And almost 90% of the teams that wore those old uniforms, they lose. When I looked at the Green Bay Packers and they had that old helmet on, I said, these boys are in trouble today. They're in trouble. If you want to wear those uniforms, wear them in practice. Don't wear them in a real game. I mean, I saw the Chargers wear that banana suit they had on, all that yellow, and I said, that is the ugliest looking thing I've ever seen. They lost. Pittsburgh went back to that old uniform. They lost. Every time I turn around, when they put on that suits, them old suits, I go, they're going to lose. We don't want to see those old suits.
Although Seattle brought back the Jim Zorn uniform.
And that was okay. We're used to that one. Okay. But when they take it way back.
Well, Seattle can't take it too far back.
No, that's what's good about Seattle. They only can go so far.
Well, it should have been also pointed out that both teams were wearing throwback uniforms in that Sunday night game. And somebody had to lose in throwback uniforms, right? I mean, and that took some of the joy of seeing the Commanders out there in those unis when they're down 28-0 in the first half. But they in that game there was going to be a winner and a loser in throwback uniforms. So it was inevitable that somebody was going to lose in a throwback, and it's not a bad thought, you know. I mean, it could change from year to year, but it is odd, and it's not just the NFL. It's all sports where you see teams, not so much the throwbacks. I think the throwbacks are usually pretty cool, and I really did like the Packers ones. It's the fact that you can turn on any game and not know who's playing based on the colors of the uniform. And what sailed years and years ago is the home team wearing white. Now, it worked out really great for the Caps. The Caps have been great with this because everybody shows up wearing a red jersey. It's a great atmosphere. And wearing red at home has been, I think, beneficial for the franchise. Not necessarily on the ice, but just the overall feel. And it's pretty much standard now that you wear the color jersey at home, although the Cowboys, for years, most of their existence have worn the white, and they've had this curse too, that generally when they wear the darker uniforms, the blue uniforms, it's thought that they lose. Well, you got to realize that they're wearing them on the road, right? Because the other team knows how much they like the white jerseys, so they wear the white at home when the Cowboys come in. Whatever. There's all these different machinations on that. Back to the Cowboys. Dak Prescott, who is paid a lot of money, has got great weapons, has not had any trouble scoring points this year, and against a meh Arizona team was able to put up only 17 points last night and leave his team at 3-5-1 with one of the worst defenses in the league in a very precarious position. This was Prescott at the post-game news conference.
Disappointing, very frustrating. Knowing that you're better than that and going out there and not putting a performance close to your standard or even the expectations or what you thought you could do and expected to do against this team, and credit to those guys. That's the beauty of the NFL. Like, games, plays, stats, none of that's done on paper. You've got to go out there and you've got to earn it that night with everything taken into account. And they kicked our ass and both sides of the ball. Limited the possessions early.
Yep, failure all around. Ryan Clark, part of the Monday Night Countdown crew with Scott Van Pelt after witnessing the Cowboys' 27-17 loss.
Scott, this was the game to provide hope. To the Dallas fans, to this organization in that locker room. You had to come back home on a Monday night football game and win, right, and be impressive and do the things that you do well. This wasn't Dak Prescott's best outing. He wasn't protected up front. We didn't see CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens dominate in the way we'd seen them dominate in different spurts throughout the season. And the execution from Brian Schottenheimer's offense just wasn't there. And we've always known what they've been defensively. No one picked this game and went, oh, the Dallas Cowboys are going to win 17-13. We expected them to give up points, but we thought that this offense would operate at a prolific level, and it did not. And that shows you, if Dak Prescott doesn't play out of his mind, if CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens aren't playing at an all-pro level, this team can't compete at all. And it makes me wonder about the trade that Jerry Jones alluded to today and think to myself, is that trade now off? Because this team has shown you they're far more than one defensive player away from being a contender.
In a loaded NFC that has, I mean, look at the entire NFC West is good. The entire NFC North is competitive.
And you know what's funny about that, Scott? We're questioning the Green Bay Packers, who are 5-2-1 because of some of their lows. Well, imagine even thinking if this team could be a part of that.
Right. Well, the point we made about Green Bay is like your two losses are to the Browns and to the Panthers. And if we're going to crown you as potential championship contenders, you can't show that your worst game you could lose to teams like that. But if this is Dallas's best performance on a Monday night against a team you're favored to beat, then they're not playoff contenders, are they?
And also, too, like, the bounce back you're supposed to have after what we saw against the Denver Broncos, after the defense playing in the manner that they did, losing that game in blowout fashion, Bo Nix doing whatever he wanted to do to you, you're supposed to want to come out here and make a point. You're supposed to want to show not only yourselves but the world that you are true contenders, that you do have a backbone, that you're willing to give the effort. And we saw none of that tonight. And I think, to me, that's the most disappointing part. You said it during the break about Trey McBride. He works hard. He tries hard. I didn't see a lot of people who were trying hard tonight for the Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh, that's about the worst thing you could say about a football player, and that's coming from a former football player in Ryan Clark. So, there's if you're a Cowboy hater, a lot to celebrate from last night. We've got Georgetown and Maryland playing on Friday night. And whatever you want to say about Kevin Willard, he helped to make this happen. He worked with Ed Cooley at Georgetown and said, let's do this. The old guard is gone. Lefty Drizel sadly has passed away. Gary Williams retired, 2011. So Gary's been out for 14 years. And John Thompson has passed away. So the old wars that went on, the grudge matches, the whole thing, that's all gone. We're at now almost the 32nd anniversary of an historic Maryland-Georgetown game. If you remember this was a really big deal. Russ Potts, who was a promoter, he put together a lot of big matchups. One of them he did in 1982 was huge, made the cover of Sports Illustrated. It was the Ralph Sampson Virginia team when Ralph was I believe Ralph was a senior and Patrick Ewing was a junior. And Ralph's Virginia team beat Georgetown in one of these Battle of the Titan early season matchups. So Russ Potts, who used to work at Maryland, put this together, put this Maryland-Georgetown game together, got Thompson to agree to it. They played it at the Capitol Center, which was Georgetown's home court at the time. Georgetown was used to making it to the NCAA tournament just about every year. They had made the final 3 times when Ewing played there. They went to they would go the next year to the Elite Eight with Allen Iverson. And Thompson never lost anybody till Iverson. Everybody stayed unless, they transferred. But if you were a starting player, you stayed 4 years at Georgetown, including Patrick Ewing. He stayed for 4 years. That was a different era. And so you knew some of the players. You knew the players coming back. And the Maryland team, although it had a couple of new faces, one of them had gotten a lot of publicity. Keith Booth was from Baltimore, a top recruit. Kentucky wanted him, most of the schools across the country. And they were very high on Keith Booth. He was going to be a program changer. They also brought in this guy named Joe Smith. And Joe Smith really wasn't known, and part of the reason he wasn't well known was he played on Allen Iverson's AAU team. And Iverson scored most of the points. And they looked at Joe Smith's numbers but Gary and his staff saw him play. They recruited him. They brought him in, and he wound up being the number 1 pick of the draft 2 years later. So this was a coming out party for Maryland in this Georgetown game with some familiar faces on both sides. We knew who the players were. I did. I'm not the biggest college basketball fan, but I follow college basketball, especially locally. I could identify players. And so it was exciting to see this Maryland team with players I was familiar with Dwayne Simpkins, who wound up hitting the winning shot at overtime. And they had a guy named X-Ray Hip, and they had Johnny, what was his name? Johnny something or other. He was an excellent player too. And so we knew these guys. I'm looking at what happened last night. Now, Maryland and Georgetown are playing this Friday, but I don't know anybody on the roster. I know Ed Cooley, the coach at Georgetown. He's been there 3 years. And this is Buzz Williams' first year at Maryland. And although it's his first year at Maryland, you know him from other places. Virginia Tech. He's been coaching at Texas A&M. But other than that, who are these guys? The leading scorer for Maryland last night in their win over Coppin State. They played this game in Baltimore at the old Civic Center. I don't know what they call it now. With nobody there, by the way. Nobody bothered to show up for this. But Pharrell Payne was the leading scorer for Maryland. I couldn't identify Pharrell Payne from Pharrell the singer, who did halftime at the Super Bowl 10 years ago. Georgetown won. They beat Morgan State. They beat them by 17. KJ Lewis was the leading scorer. Who is he? And this is going to be, this is not like Julian Reese coming back for his 4th year last year. This is a totally new Maryland team. I believe it's a totally new Georgetown team. There may be a couple of holdovers. And, how do you get into this if you don't know the players? You know the uniforms. And I was watching some of this game last night against Coppin State. And, yeah, I'm familiar with the uniforms. They look the same. They've been wearing those for quite a while. It's the Under Armour uniforms. And it says Maryland across the chest. But who are the players? And the problem with college basketball, I've said this a million times, but it gets swallowed up by football, and football stops later and later. So it's the middle of February by the time we get out from under the Super Bowl, and there's less than a month to go in the regular season in college basketball. And are you going to know any of these players? Maybe. If you watch a game here and there, maybe a star emerges. But this is a different era. And it's, I think, even harder and harder now to become a college basketball fan. Like, when you've got a star player coming back for what is going to be his last year. Now, the whole landscape has changed anyway because of the one and done. But even in a one and done, you knew some of these guys who were coming in and they got the preseason hype. I didn't hear any preseason hype about these guys. These are just, some of them are former players at Texas A&M. And I guess if you really know college basketball, you're going to know these guys. But I just don't know how you get attached to this. By the time Len Bias was a senior at Maryland, wow, I'd seen a lot of Len Bias. As a sophomore, he was the best player on a team that won the ACC championship. First time they'd won that with Lefty. And then he comes back for 2 more years, and by his senior year, he's one of the best players in the country. And we've seen him play against Jordan when they were both juniors, and they were both great players. And, you could identify that. I saw John Lucas as a freshman, watched him for 4 years. Seemed like he was there for like 100 years. That's kind of Phil Ford used to run the 4 corners at North Carolina, 4-year starter. North Carolina was on TV all the time. You turn on the TV and say, gee, wasn't I watching Phil Ford at North Carolina like 10 years ago? No, but that's the way it seemed. Not that way anymore. You may have a familiar player, but he may be on his 3rd school. So I'm looking forward to this Georgetown Maryland game, but I can't remember watching a Maryland game where I don't know a single player on the roster. And same for Georgetown. I usually knew at least 1 or 2. You don't know any of these guys. You know the coaches. You know who they are, but the coaches don't play. So I'm going to watch it. It's on Friday night, and it's at College Park. But just looking at the box scores from last night, who the hell are these guys? Who are they? Hard to tell. All right, that's enough for me. Bram is coming up next, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.